This is Pamela Kuhn, and the curtain is up on Center Stage, the show about the arts and the artists behind their work. And I do have an artist in store for you all today. This man is no stranger to Center Stage, as we've spoken before about his journey as an entertainment lawyer, his cancer scare, and now his beautiful photography that he cherishes and brings images to our eyes to reflect the artistic nature of his. Xiomáro is a man for all seasons. His love and respect for historical residences is impressive. His cunning eye, which catches street life in New York City, celebrates with his new book, which we are going to speak about today. And all I can say is, Xiomáro, welcome back to Center Stage. I am so thrilled to have you again.
I'm glad to be back. I was getting worried maybe I bored everybody or bored you, but maybe I talked too much last time, but here I am, so I'm grateful.
You talked just the right amount, and you were the most delightful guest.
Oh, good.
And I remember I was on the West Coast when I spoke to you. We just kind of, you took it away. I mean, there was a lot to cover in your life, my dear.
All right. Well, hopefully I don't dominate the discussion too much, so feel free to restrain me.
Hey, this is your platform. I don't want to do any restraining.
All right. Well, thank you.
Last time we met, we talked about your journey, which has been so profound. And we've got to start today by reminding everyone about your name.
Mm-hmm.
What does Xiomáro mean?
Okay, that's a good question. Xiomáro means literally ready for battle in Spanish. It's an old Spanish name. It's actually a female name. It's actually Xiomara with an A at the end.
Oh, yeah.
It's not typically a male name. But when I came across the name and I saw the meaning of it, it really resonated with me because of my battle with cancer. And also as an entertainment lawyer, part of my career was spent as a litigation attorney, which is all about fighting. So I just thought it was and also I was new to the art world as a photographer. So it was kind of a battle there to kind of break in. So I thought it was a very suitable name. I also, as an artist, since I think visually, I really like the shape of the letter X, and I needed something that was available as a domain name for my website. So there were a lot of reasons for going with that name. But the other reason too, I don't know if we covered this the last time, but I haven't talked about it too much in the past for reasons I'll explain in a moment. But when I started pursuing art photography after recovering from cancer, as you mentioned in the introduction, I was an entertainment lawyer. But the entertainment law world kind of started getting very difficult because of the illegal downloading of music through Napster at that time. This is back in the early 2000s. So, between recovering from cancer, the fact that the music industry was not doing very well economically, and also I wanted to go into art photography, I ended up working for other law firms. I had my own practice, but then I started working for other law firms. And the problem with working with other law firms is that the law firms want you to put in as many hours as possible because, of course, they charge by the hour. And unfortunately, they don't pay me any extra for all that work. So I didn't want them knowing what I was doing on the side because they will check online and they may make that an issue. That actually happened to me once many years ago when I was also doing music. And I was working for a lawyer who gave me a hard time about that. So I decided that I needed to have a pseudonym, not just because it was kind of fun to have, but also to have something to hide behind. Because when all these articles started coming out about me and these other appearances I was doing on radio and television, they couldn't, it'd be harder for them to put two and two together. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, but it served many purposes. And I suppose now that I'm not working for anybody, I could go by my legal name, but so many people now know me by the pseudonym, I just might as well hang on to it.
I love this. The nom de plume suits me. I think it's absolutely electrifying because it is you. And I love that whole idea of the visual X,
Oh, yeah. I've always loved the look of the X and,
Isn't that interesting?
And also it's confusing. I can't, usually from a marketing point of view, you want a name that's easy for people to pronounce and to spell. Yeah. But of course, I'm a contrarian. So I do everything the opposite. So I pick a name that everybody struggles to spell and to pronounce. because the X can be pronounced in many different ways. Sometimes people pronounce it like, as if it was Chinese. They don't know what I am. And what's really funny, Pam, is on my email, to kind of help people out, I have a phonetic spelling of my name so people know how to pronounce it. And even though that's on every piece, every press release and every email and every document, people still struggle to pronounce it.
Really?
Yeah, they still do. They still do. So they just kind of make up whatever name they want. And then I've had some folks who at least are honest about it and completely give up, no matter how many times I explain the name to them. So
Yeah.
they just call me X, you know?
Hey,
So they,
that's okay.
yeah, I don't mind that. That kind of, it's kind of you kind of deconstructing it down to its essence, almost like an abstract piece. So I'm fine with that too. X.
And
I mean,
that's
I've been called
wow.
worse things before, so I'll take X.
This is what I love about you. I just love it. I love the way that you are so thorough about everything. And really, that kind of harkens back to your main personality and that you're a lawyer. I mean, you really look into everything. And I have to say, you were very specific when we first met about how to pronounce your name. And I felt so good about that, seeing that phonetic, pronunciation. I felt
Yeah.
safe.
Well, it happens in reverse. Sometimes, I've encountered a name that's derived from an ethnicity that we're not accustomed
Right.
to, or people have an unusual spelling of the name, and you're not really sure. So, I always like to know and to ask, because I want to be respectful of people. But if there's no phonetic spelling, then I have no clue. So I'm kind of, faking it. So I just thought it was just good to make it easy for folks. But you brought up a good point. I mean, I think by nature, I've always been pretty thorough and careful, but certainly the experience of going through law school and becoming a lawyer
Hmm.
just made that even more heightened. And I have to say, I think it's helped me out a lot as an artist. When I was representing artists as a lawyer, one of the things that was really frustrating for me, because I wanted to help them out, was they just don't listen. They don't follow advice. They're kind of freewheeling, which is kind of fun in an interview, and it's fun on stage, and it's fun in a social setting because, they're entertainers, so they should be entertaining. But when it comes to business, that doesn't always work very well.
Yeah.
And for a time, I also managed artists. And, sometimes it was just really disappointing to see them kind of shoot themselves in the foot and not be prepared for things or take things for granted. So every time I get an interview, whether it's a small local outfit or whether it's a New York Times or NPR, I
Hmm.
treat them all the same. I take it very seriously and I try to do the best that I can. And I try to, honor everybody, because also you never know where someone's going to end up, right?
That's
Somebody
right.
who, I've seen folks kind of mistreat people who are on the lower end as they may see it. And then those folks rise to the top and now they just burn that bridge. So there was a lot I learned as a lawyer and as a manager that's been really applicable to what I'm doing now.
Wow. Wow. How has your sense as a musician and as a manager for, musicians, professional musicians out there, how has that affected your photography?
Oh, well, it's interesting. A lot of photographers, when they're asked what are their influences, they'll often, you know, cite another photographer, whatever, whoever it may be, Ansel Adams or, all kinds of folks. I'm not actually influenced by any photographer. Maybe subconsciously I am, but I partially because I didn't know anything about photography when I started. I just started shooting instinctively. So a lot of my thinking process for creating images was mostly drawn from two places. It would be painting. I
Hmm.
studied. I didn't major in painting in college, but I did study it a lot, art history as well
Hmm.
as studio art classes. So I'm kind of aware of how things should look visually from the old masters, which preceded photography. So I know I'm pulling stuff out of there. And then also compositionally, certainly from music, there is I'm going to paraphrase it. There's a statement from Ray Charles that I read about many years ago, but he was talking about how the pop song or any kind of music is unique in that you have to tell a story in a very short period of time, 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes at the most. And then there's a certain degree of repetition because you have the hook or the chorus. So when you boil it all down to the lyrics, it's mostly the verses, and you got to tell your story within that short period of time or within a few words. And so, as a musician, I did a lot of songwriting. I consider that probably my biggest strength. And so that economy of writing is something that I'm aware of, and I try to translate that when I create an image, or hopefully it tells some kind of story or create some level of interest, because a photo can't speak. It doesn't move like a film. You have to kind of pull things out of it. So I think between painting and music, that's a lot of what I pull from, and especially in music because of, my genre was rock and roll, mm-hmm. and I played guitar, and so there's a certain degree of improvisation in it. Maybe not as much as in jazz, but there's still some improvisation. And so when I'm photographing on the streets of New York City, there's a lot of improvising going on because I can't control the shoot. I don't know what's going to happen on the street. People are moving constantly. There's things you have to be very self-aware about because you could be pickpocketed. Someone can steal your camera. Right. People can hustle you for money. There's traffic, there's crowds, there's a lot going on. So you have to think very quickly in order to capture an image. And you almost have to think in advance and try to anticipate the action, because if you don't anticipate it, by the time you see it and click the shutter, it's gone already.
Exactly.
And in music, it's like that too. I was playing in a band for a while where we performed probably as much as 4 or 5 times a week. And those 4 or 5 times, each set was completely different music. Mm-hmm. So, we didn't have a lot of time to rehearse. And so a lot of times, quite frankly, I was just kind of making it up as I went along. Even the lyrics, I'd forget the lyrics and I'd have to kind of make it up on the spot. And fortunately, many people got fooled. They say, "Hey, you did a great job." I go, "Oh, if you only really knew." I was just sweating at bullets the whole time. But that experience is very translatable to being on the street. And even lawyer work, legal work, because you never know what a client's going to ask. If you're mm-hmm. in court, you don't know what the judge is going to ask.
Yeah,
you can come in well prepared with, with your statements and all that, and your oral arguments. Mm-hmm. But at any point, a judge could interrupt you and just ask you a question and take you right off your script, so to speak. And you have to be ready for that and honor it. You can't tell the judge to shut up. You're interrupting me.
Well, I guess you could, but there are consequences.
You could, yes. And you can also end up in jail for contempt of court.
Not a good thing.
No.
Really,
but all those things, I think, get filtered into, the photography.
And to me as a musician, I feel that what you're talking about then is a sense of structure, because even though, when you get up with the band and it was different every night, there usually is a musical arc that you're trying to create within one song that you guys, if you haven't rehearsed, you still know it. And what I love about rock and roll and of course jazz is it will always be different. Mm-hmm. There will always be some sort of turn or a little coda, that is thrown. It's just kind of instinctive and spontaneous on the night.
Well, that's what I loved about it. I don't like doing the same thing over and over again. Yeah. I get bored easily, and I want it to be fresh and different.
Yeah.
It also made it exciting. At any moment, it felt like it was just going to become a complete disaster, and sometimes that happened live, and that was fun too. But you're right. There is a structure to it. You kind of know, you want to know what key you're in, so you're playing in key. That helps. Songs have a certain structure, from introduction, chorus, pre-chorus, chorus, the outro, the tags, and all that sort of thing. So, if you do it enough times, you kind of know enough to, to ride with it.
Oh, yeah.
What makes it hard, of course, is that I was in a band with other musicians of varying levels of experience and also mm-hmm. commitment to what we were doing. So if you have somebody who's not that experienced, or they're not that committed, and they're just making a mess of things, that could impact you. And that's one of the things I like about photography, that I don't need a band to do it. I can photograph as much as I want. I don't have to get permission or have a discussion with anybody and vote on it. If I want to stay up all night long to get a project complete, I can do those things. Mm-hmm. At one time with a band that I was in, a lot of people may not remember, but when American Idol first came on the air, they had a website version of the show. The internet was still relatively new, I guess. And so their website version of the show had more independent music, as they call it, more rock and roll, as opposed to what they did on the show, which tended to be more R&B. And I don't know how it happened, but somehow a live recording of one of the songs that I wrote that we did at a club was picked up on American Idol, and it actually reached the top 10 by voters, by listeners, just for a week. It wasn't very long. It was just the top 10, and then it disappeared after that. But I thought it was really interesting that happened organically. And what was frustrating to me at the time was, just going back to what I said earlier about musicians who are not as experienced or committed, it was not possible for me to capitalize on that attention that we had because the rest of the folks just weren't ready to do what it takes to take advantage of it. Wow. So what I like about photography is that I can, I don't need to consult with anybody. And that's why I have this.
Look at that. Street photography of New York City. Yeah. Street haunting in the Big Apple. Wow. Yeah.
So this just came. In fact, I just got these yesterday. So I haven't even had a chance to thumb through, but I know what's in it, of course.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, but that's what I like, that I can see a project to completion. Yeah, and I can help, the publisher, thankfully, is, they have a marketing company, so they're promoting the book. But, why let them do all the work? If I can help promote it, I do that as well. If this was an album as opposed to a book and I had a band, it'd be a real struggle, it
would be complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless everyone's on the same page, and that's pretty rare. You don't see too many groups like the Beatles, and even they had their infights and disagreements, but they managed to pull together enough to see their way to the success levels that they reached. And that's just really hard to do. And that's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards photography, because I needed an artistic outlet and I just couldn't do it through music. Now I still do music. In fact, I'm in my studio right now. But then it requires me to play every instrument, to record, to engineer and record everything. And it's a long process.
It's a lengthy process.
Yeah. And every now and then I'll release a video of a song of mine and all that. I do the videos as well. But it's probably no more than once a year because I'm so busy with photography now, and I got to do everything myself on the other end. But again, these are not complaints. I welcome all this.
I know you love your life, and we love you for it. Let's talk about this book now. I want to know the setup. How does this happen that a person like you, or Henri Cartier-Bresson, the great, wonderful French photographer who would catch street life so well, and you've done the same. Do you find a couple of subjects and then follow them for a little bit just to see if the ignition will happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of different techniques to it. Sometimes I do. I've even gone as far as, maybe I shouldn't reveal my secret, but I have a pair. I'll explain what happened. Sometimes I do follow people a little bit if I see that they're interesting, and so I'll kind of just kind of see where they go. And I don't stalk them, anything creepy like that. But, I just keep an eye on them to see if I can get them in an interesting, interesting setting. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, especially in the city, there are so many people and they're moving so fast that sometimes they zip by me before I've had a chance to get them. And, if I catch their pictures, just their backs, and that's not very interesting. I've experimented with trying to anticipate what's around me. So, our peripheral vision goes out this way, but I don't know what's happening behind me. So I even went so far as to purchase a pair of sunglasses. I wear sunglasses often in the street, and they have mirrors in the back. So I can actually see what's happening behind me.
No.
And I use that because if I see someone behind me who looks interesting, then I can anticipate them and I can get into position so I can get a photograph. That's a little tricky to do because it's very disorienting to look in front of you and to the side. So. Yeah, there's stuff going on behind you, and it just gets kind of weird. It's almost like you're on a drug trip. Not that I've ever been on one, but I can imagine it. But I try all kinds of things. I've also tried just staying in a particular spot, having my camera set up, and then whoever happens to walk in the way, I'll get their picture that way. But a lot of it is very impulsive. I just see something and I just try to grab the shot as quickly as I can and as surreptitiously as I can. It's not, again, that I'm stalking them, but we are in such a camera oriented world now because of
Yes.
social media. People like the pose. That's what they do. They pose, and nothing wrong with posed pictures, but I just think it's more interesting to get somebody unposed
Yeah.
because it just gives you a different sense of who they are. I think those images tend to be more authentic. They're more interesting. A lot of posed photographs, people tend to copy how other people pose. So it all kind of looks the same. So I'd rather get people in their unguarded moments. And I just think it just creates a more psychological picture too.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've noticed with many of your photos, a lot of it happens on the subway, in subway stations, which I already is interesting. But I saw one earlier today and I loved it. Two women sitting on a train, I believe. One
Mhm.
girl was young, she's in red, she's on her phone. And the woman sitting next to her, older, tired, she also had red on. And it was
Mhm.
the most interesting comparison of what was going on. It was, it takes a watchful eye to catch something like that, the yin and the yang, the black and the white. It's just so interesting to me that you have that kind of eye.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I do try to be aware of that, uh, color combinations. Uh, Again, what's difficult is it's very ephemeral. It happens so quick.
Hmm.
And again, you
Hmm.
want to do it where they don't see what you're doing, especially in a subway, because when you're sitting across from them, they're not very far. And as you can see
Right.
from the photo, it was in a crowded subway. So, that was a tricky one. But there are many juxtapositions like that are completely ephemeral. They're literally for seconds and they disappear. So to be able to capture them, is really interesting. It's almost like it's just documenting a millisecond that will disappear into history. We'll never see it again.
I
And that's
know.
what's great about street photography. It's not contrived. So whatever you see is completely unique and original. It's not going to look like something else. And there's it's a big body of work of photographers who do photograph, in the subway. I was just looking at a book just yesterday from a photographer named Walker Evans,
Oh, yes.
who did a lot of photography
I
in the
love his work.
1930s. Yeah,
Yeah.
really great photographer. But he shot a lot in New York City subways. And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that he used a hidden camera, believe it or not. He had something that kind of peeked out of his jacket between the buttonholes. And so he took pictures that way. So I don't have a camera. I just use my camera and just hope nobody catches me or has an
Yeah,
issue
yeah,
with it.
yeah.
But that's how he did it, a lot of his pictures. And they're really interesting. You look back at them and you see, just the average person, how they live their life in New York City in the 1930s. And it's just different than what you see in a contrived movie or a posed picture. My photographs, I mean, it's very meaningful to me that you see a lot of interest in the pictures that you commented on my photos, because they're contemporary. So someone just glancing at it might think, well, what's the big deal? It's just a contemporary picture. I see this every day. But you see what's behind it. But I think also over time, as the world continues to change at the rapid pace that it's going, the pictures I'm taking today are going to look even more interesting because it's going to be a world that we no longer recognize, just like these pictures from the 1930s. So in the future, they'll be of interest, not just compositionally and artfully, but even just from a historical point of view. It'll just document the times we live in today that are undoubtedly going to change.
So, do you have any favorite haunts, any areas where you find that there are particular riches?
You know, um, Maybe it's a cliche, but I really like Times Square. There's just something about Times Square that energizes me because there's so much happening over there.
Yeah.
There's a sense of danger. I mean, there have been attempted terrorist events that have occurred there. There are police walking around with machine guns, so that they don't mess around. But you also get to see a clash of New York City residents, workers who don't live in New York City, but obviously have their jobs here, and tourists from around the world. And then you have very conservative looking people, and you have a lot of odd people who show up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have this mishmash, and they're all together, and somehow it doesn't fall apart. And it's also very fast.
Yeah.
You have all the advertisements. The advertisements are constantly changing, and there are many of them. So a lot of times in my photography, I'll just wait to see what combinations come up and try to pair them with what's going on in the street with the people. And again, that's, it's constantly changing. There's also a lot of reflections there too.
Yeah.
I try to find other cities that have a lot of reflective surfaces, and I really haven't. I mean, I've tried Piccadilly Square, Piccadilly Circle,
Circus.
Circus. That's it. Getting it all wrong in London, and there's a little bit of it, but it just wasn't quite the same. But in Times Square, there's so much glass and steel, and then there's puddles of water and all that, and it's constantly reflecting all these lights and
I
the
love
people
it.
going by and the cars and all that. And so sometimes in a lot of my photography, I create these images that look almost like they're AI, like they're fake, or manipulated, and they're not. They're actually photographs of a reality.
Yeah.
But if you compose it in a certain way where you don't have any reference points, it just looks nuts. Sometimes I'll upload these on certain social media sites, and it will actually trigger a message warning me, we do not accept AI images, And I just laugh because it's not AI, it's real.
It's me. Yeah.
The way it actually is.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do you do everything digitally then, Xio?
I do. Everything's with a digital camera.
Mm-hmm.
I did study, back in the day, of course, I shot with film. And then after I started pursuing photography seriously, I did study a type of photography called wet plate collodion, which some people might not know what that means. But if you look at photographs from the Civil War, for instance, Civil War era, that type of photography that was done back then is something that I took some training in learning how to do. So it's not just film, but you're actually creating your film and you're making it on the spot outdoors. What you do is you mix the chemicals outside, you pour them on a glass plate, or it could be a metal plate, and then you have to kind of tilt the plate a little bit so it covers the entire surface evenly. While it's still wet, you put it into a camera, a big box wooden camera. There's no shutter to click, so it's just a cover on the lens. You got to remove it, and then depending on your sense of the temperature and the humidity, you kind of know from feel how long to keep it open for. Otherwise, you may get a lot of blur or some other things you don't want. You cap it back. You remove the glass while it's still wet. And then out in the field, you have to develop it, which, requires some fire. And so that whole process was something that I learned. I haven't had much time to do it, unfortunately, because you don't want to rush through it. The chemicals that are used are carcinogenic, and I've already got over cancers. I don't want to deal with that again.
Yeah.
And they're also explosive. So it's not something you want to do when you're in a rush. Yeah. You want to make sure you're completely focused on it and you're taking your time, you're doing it the right way, step by step. But it is something I would like to return to because unlike digital, it gives you a different it's also, it kind of gives you almost like a painterly feel to it.
Yeah.
In fact, some of your audience might know a photographer named Sally Mann. She lives in Virginia. She has a book out now, and she was very controversial in the 1980s for doing these photographs of her children, like with a candy cigarette. People thought it was a real cigarette, and some of her girls were not wearing a top, so people kind of got bent out of shape over that. But she's a really good artist, and she shoots in wet plate collodion style. She uses that method.
Wow.
And so the person that the couple that she learned that from were the same folks I learned from. And if you look at her photographs, if you look them up online, you'll see that they are very painterly. They're kind of dreamy. And that was something that I wanted to do in my photography. I do it now digitally with the reflections that I talked about on Times Square, which they do look kind of hallucinogenic and illusory. But there's another way of accomplishing that with a different feel. Of course, they're all black and white too, using the wet plate collodion process. So, maybe one day when things are not as busy as they are now, I'll go back to that and give that a try.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, in fact, I have, hang on one sec, this is right next to me. I already bought the cameras for it. So I don't know if you could see that.
This is fascinating.
See that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So this is
Look at that.
It's a Kodak. Yeah, this is an Eastman Kodak camera. It's from the 1800s. Got the bellows and everything.
And it's in such remarkable shape.
Oh, it's in great shape.
And
But
it
I
would be
bought
so.
it for that reason, to use it for wet plate collodion.
Was this something you'd, really conjured because of your previous pictures in these beautiful historical homes? Peering into George Washington's world and of course Weir Farm. Did this just go hand in hand with that?
Yeah, actually, it does tie in. What happened was, for folks who don't know, after recovering from cancer, I was looking for a way to get started in photography.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I got my start was I was accepted for an artist in residence program at Connecticut's first national park site. It's called Weir Farm National Historical Park. So it's in Connecticut. And so they accepted me for their program. And, that really got me my start. I ended up, doing some exhibits that got a lot of attention and all that. But after the residency was over, I didn't know where to go from there. Like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
So I figured, well, I need to do something that's different, that'll make me stand out. Something that's, again, because my background is more in painting than photography, I kind of liked the look of wet plate collodion. And of course, being exposed to the history at this national park site. So I ended up taking this seminar, this workshop with this couple in Rochester who teach this. And so my intention was to do that instead. But then before I was able to, after I took the course and was ready to do it, then Weir Farm contacted me. And it turned out that they wanted to use the photographs that I took while I was there to help promote the park. And some of the pictures I had were not really ideal for their purposes. So they ended up just formally commissioning me to do a proper collection, that would be artistic, but also promote the park. And once I did that, that caught a lot of public attention. And then other parks started contacting me to do the same thing. And basically, this is going back to 2011. It's been nonstop ever since. I just keep getting one after another, after another, after another. And so I've never been able to return to wet plate collodion. And then the street photography, I had no intention of turning that into a book or doing anything with it. It was just a way for me to stay in practice, keep my eyes sharp between commissions, because, it takes a while to get them and to complete them. And this is a way for me to photograph every single day. But I've been moving more towards street photography because, we're living in a very different world now. So we're in the midst of a government shutdown, as the world knows. Hopefully it'll be over by the time this podcast goes out. But also, there have been a lot of cutbacks on the budgets for running different things like the National Park Service. So I don't know whether I'm going to be able to continue getting commissioned by the National Park Service to create these collections of these different park sites. Not that they pay me very much anyway. I mean, it's the government, so they pay very minimal. But with all the cuts, they may need what little money they have to just deal with the basics, making sure bathrooms are clean for visitors and all that sort of thing.
Right.
So it occurred to me, I really need to kind of broaden what I do, because that may dry up. And so whatever photographs I've taken of these parks may be all that there's ever going to be. And those photographs may have more significance now too, because to the extent budgets get cut to the point where access to these parks get curtailed for the public, maybe another way to visit the park is to look at my pictures.
Is through your work.
Yeah, and especially since my photographs also give folks a perspective of the park that they're probably not going to get if they go there anyway.
Correct. You've been granted access into some of the most incredible rooms.
Exactly. Yeah, I can go behind the velvet rope, so to speak, and I can get close-ups where you can't really see it during a tour. So it's a different way of experiencing the parks, and so those may have more, more significance depending on how things pan out with the budgeting.
I
But
think
that's the reason why. Sorry.
I think that's an understatement, Xiomáro, because We're seeing the tear down of the East Wing of the White House right now.
That's
Anything
right.
could happen. And yours may be the only work in some cases that truly exists. And I have to say that you have I admire this very much, a reverential look into these historical places. You really cherish this. There's a definite sense of your preserving of history and as it was, through your eye, but you're really trying to conjure a texture and a feel of another time. It's quite special for those who are not familiar with your work.
Yeah, I would encourage them to check it out in my on my website. It's Xiomáro.com. I guess you'll post that later, but they can
Yeah.
see some of it there. I mean, there is a book. My first book was called Weir Farm National Historic Site, so that documents the history and the landscape and the home of Weir Farm. They're I have an exhibit coming up with the Long Island Museum that's going to take place in February of next year. It's not a solo exhibit. It's part of a larger exhibit on the history of the Revolutionary War, to kind of mark the
Oh,
250th anniversary of the nation's founding. And so I have 4 photographs that are going to be part of this larger exhibit. Now, obviously, there was no photography back in the Revolutionary War period, so people might wonder, well, what
of
are your
course.
photographs about? But I photographed I photographed the home of one of the founding fathers, a guy named William Floyd, General Floyd. He served under George Washington. And a lot of people don't know who he is because when the British came and basically took over Long Island for 7 years, and by the way, that was the longest occupation out of any location among the colonies on Long Island. But when they took it over, his family had to flee to Connecticut, and he fled to upstate New York, if I remember correctly, and he left his home behind, and so an estate, and so the British ransacked it, and obviously they kind of devastated all of Long Island because they were using that to as a resource to support their troops for the battle. So there's not a lot left. There are very few artifacts about this fellow, but his name is on the Declaration of Independence. And Presidents or Madison and Jefferson, before they were presidents, actually visited his home after the Revolution. So I have 4 photographs. I will have a whole collection of photographs that the National Park Service commissioned me to take to document this home and also the property. And so 4 of those photographs were selected by the museum to be part of this overall exhibit. So
Stunning.
so in addition to being on the street, people can also see an entirely different kind of photography. But again, it may be more meaningful because if they were to go to the William Floyd estate on Long Island to visit it, they can't because the government is shut down, and so they won't have any
Right.
access. I don't even know if they can get into the property. They certainly can't get into the house, that's for sure.
I am so sorry to hear this. So
Yeah. So,
wow. Wow. I have to say I have a particular love of your usage of light when you go into historical residences.
hmm.
I have the feeling always you're sitting with the ghost of the inhabitants and they speak to you somehow. That's what I see when I walk into your realm of photography. And hearing about this historical means, with your box camera and all. I mean, what an art form, Xiomáro. This is very impressive.
Oh, thank you. The use of light, I'm glad you picked up on that
Oh,
because
yes,
I think a lot of that comes from the painting world that I was
of
steeped in.
course.
I did
Yeah.
paint for a while. Painters like Rembrandt,
Hmm.
Goya, Caravaggio, they have a strong use of dark and light in their images. And so I try to incorporate that. I mean, when I first started photographing, I won't mention the park because I don't want them to feel bad, but there's a particular park that I photographed. And I just photographed the rooms of this very important, iconic home, just the way it was, just the lighting that was there. I wanted to give the viewer a sense of what it felt like back in those days when there was no artificial electric lighting,
Yeah.
just whatever comes through the windows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, naturally, some things are going to fall into shadow and some things are
Hmm.
going to be
Hmm.
lightly
Hmm.
lit up. But, some of the folks on staff who are not artists, um, they actually thought that the picture should be lightened so that you could see everything. So you can see everything.
Yeah.
And I get that because from most of them are historians, so they everything that's in the room has some meaning to them. But to me, it's like, well, if you want to take a documentary pictures, what the National Park Service does do in house, you have that already.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to create something that was artistic
Yeah.
to give you kind of a sense of mystery and
Yes.
also kind of sets a mood. And that's kind of like what you get from the Rembrandt, Goya, and Caravaggio pictures. They're paintings, and you don't have to see everything. Let some things be a mystery. And if you really want to know what's there, well, you can go to the park for as long as they're open. You can go to the park, and that was kind of the idea behind the photographs. It was to give you a different view of it and to understand what life was like back then, which is not all lit up. But what happens, Pam, is that in today's age, we're accustomed to seeing these overly produced photographs,
That's
in
right.
advertisements, and especially like in real estate photography where everything is lit up as it should be. Because if you're going to buy the house, you want to know what you're getting. You don't want things to be in shadow. So we're kind of accustomed to seeing photographs of the interiors being brightly lit. But I didn't think that would serve well what
No.
these rooms look like. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but things were mostly candlelit. So
Of
a lot of
course.
clothing, if you look at the wardrobe, like in these museums that display them, you'll notice that a lot of these colors are very, very bright, especially for women. And in part, that's because if you're under candlelight at night, you need something that's brighter to stand
Because
out. You
everything
wouldn't
was so
need something.
dark. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't need
Yeah.
something so bright if you're under, artificial lights. So
Wow, you're conjuring all sorts of chiaroscuro in everything. And of course, you're right. That's as it was. I mean, for quite a long time. Wow. Oh, it's beautiful what you do. It's I have to say, Xiomáro, your work is wonderful. But I want to now let's go the other extreme. I want to get back to the New York City
mhm.
street photography. Can you just show us a couple of pictures from the book that are perhaps
Yeah,
your favorites?
sure. Let's see what I've got here. some of them are some of them require you got to really look at them because sometimes there are things in the background that seem random or
And
they
they're
just happen to
not.
be there,
Yeah.
but they're not. No, they have something to do with the photograph. And in some cases, when the publisher was preparing the images for publication, they cropped some things, and I had to like explain to them, well, you can't crop it that way because then it loses the meaning of the picture. But well, here's one. I don't know if you could see that, but that's the Brooklyn Bridge. I
Oh,
took this a
wow.
long time ago. I forget what year it was,
Okay.
but I was in Brooklyn, and as you can see, there's the barbed wire around it,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was very symbolic of the changes that were happening at the time
Oh my
after 9/11.
gosh. And the
And
American flag.
yeah, the American
Oh,
flag, and it's kind of a foreshadowing of what was to come many,
of,
many years later. This is at least 10 years old, that picture, maybe more.
you're a
But that,
prophet. I mean,
well, yeah,
comparing that to where we are right now, that's a little bit disturbing. Yeah.
it is. Yeah, it's
Wow.
disturbing. There's also pictures here. I don't know if I can show them, but
Of course.
one of the things that inspired the book for me to photograph in the street to begin with was seeing these half naked women or almost totally naked women on Times Square. I didn't know that was going on, but you have these women. They're called desnudas. They're mostly Latin, and they're just wearing body paint and feathers on their heads.
Which has
And
become very popular. Yeah.
yeah, they take pictures with the tourists and they charge them some money. But I was not aware of all that. Somehow I missed all that. And so when I first started walking through Times Square, when I was still working at a law firm, hiding behind my pseudonym, I literally got hit in the face with a woman who walked by with the feathers. I'm kind of tall and she wasn't that tall. So
Yeah.
when she brushed by me, her feathers hit me in the face. Like, what was that? I thought it was like a pigeon or something. And when I turned around, I see these two women and they just wearing body paint. I go, what? So I started looking into it, and then I realized that was a very controversial thing happening in Times Square. But it was so unbelievable to me. I said, I
Wow.
got to photograph that. There's just so many
Absolutely.
weird things happening. I mean, there were many other encounters that I had that were just kind of weird. And I thought I should photograph some of that.
It's a
So that's
moment
what
in
started.
time.
Yeah, that's what started the book. But someone's like, here's a picture. I like this one. This is like so New York. This guy's got such an attitude of being
Yep.
tough and cool, and that's unposed. He just happened to be walking by with the cigarette in his
Wow.
mouth. There's some girls in the back kind of looking.
Looking, the white glasses, the baseball cap turned backwards.
Yeah, it's
That's
just like a
very
lot
New
of
York.
attitude there. Very New York. But then you get folks like this. Hang on one second. I'm actually running out of power on my phone.
Oh my God. Can't have that.
It just gave me a warning. I was supposed to plug it in and I forgot. So sorry about that,
Hey,
folks.
believe me, I've done that too, Xiomáro.
Technical difficulties. Um, but then you get like stylish people, like these ladies here. I don't know if you can
Yes.
see that very well. It's kind of hard to get that.
Oh, yeah, these are ladies from Connecticut, my dear.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're from
yeah,
Greenwich.
the whole Stepford wife look. Yeah. So, but very fashionable. So you get this mix. That whole first chapter in the book, I show just the beauty of the different ways people express themselves through their clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
find that really, really fascinating.
How how
There's
im-
also, go
how
ahead, I'm sorry.
important is the sense of movement in your pictures to you?
Oh, I like that. I like the sense of action because it kind of
Mm-hmm.
represents the way New York is, which is very
Mm-hmm.
fast and things are constantly happening. Um, I don't have too many of them in this particular book.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let your audience know first. I'm actually working on a third book that'll probably come out in 2027. But that one is going to deal with a lot of photographs that are really going to push people to really have to see because they may not even like these pictures. But these are pictures with lots of drama on the darkness and the lightness, but
Mm-hmm.
also blurry pictures, pictures that are intentionally blurry. And I do that because, ironically, by slowing things down and getting these ghostly wisps of people
Mm-hmm.
and things happening, it does give you a sense of all the motion happening in New York. And
Wow.
so I just love that, just, and also even reflections. This book that I'm working on is going to have a lot of those reflections off the windows. And it just looks like complete chaos, almost like a bad dream.
Right. Right.
And that also gives you a sense of motion. And so it's important to do this because, again, it's not a film that I'm taking, it's a still image. And so, how do you convey what one feels on the street? And those are
Right.
some of the ways I think of doing it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. This
So,
is so fantastic. There's such energy in everything you're showing me, and there's such energy in everything you talk about. Even getting back to the historical residences. I think that's what I love because you're conjuring a world, a realm for us to take a moment and really look. So
hmm.
that leads me to ask you, how often do you take a photo and then you get it home and you suddenly realize, oh, I didn't realize all that was going on in the background, and that gives you like that three-dimensional kind of story, going
Oh,
on.
well, that's a
How
good.
often does that happen?
Almost every time, because I'll be honest with you. I mean, I was in Manhattan. The last time I was in the city, I met up with a friend of mine out there too. And then he asked me, so, how did it go? Because I was there early in the morning. We met in the afternoon. He goes, how are you getting anything good? And I said, no, it's all garbage. I'm probably going to delete everything. There's nothing interesting. I mean, I shot a lot, but I don't really think I did a very good job. And I always feel that way after I shoot. It's very rare. Maybe one or two pictures I feel like are keepers and they're good.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just very hard on myself. I don't
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah,
things
yeah.
also happen very fast. So I shoot instinctively without really processing. And I don't check behind the camera very much. I don't do that. So, but then when I get home and I get to the studio and I put them up, I'm often pleasantly surprised. I go, wow, that looks much better than I thought it was. And many times I do say things happening in the background,
Mm-hmm.
and it might be luck, but sometimes I think too that the brain processes things faster than we can even consciously realize it. And it ends up being a really interesting composition. So fortunately, on that particular day when he asked me, and I said, I don't think I did very well. I think I ended up with maybe 10, 20, 30 pictures that I thought were good enough
Okay.
to,
Okay.
to finish and keep and are exhibitable.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when I do an exhibit, then I'm even harder, and I really try to
Yeah.
pick the best.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard because there are photos that speak to me and I think are really good. And then nobody seems to get it.
Yeah.
And then there are other pictures that I think are, it's kind of mediocre. And for some reason, people find something really interesting about it. So you never really know what resonates with somebody, but that's why you just got to keep shooting. You put it out there, and
But
it's always changing. My favorite pictures always change from day to day. They change over time. There are photographs, Pam, that I've looked at that took years ago that I just kind of forgot about. And I kind of stumble across and I go, wow, that's actually pretty good. I remember
yeah,
at the time I took it, I thought it was terrible, but I kind of like it now.
yeah, yeah.
So, our perspectives change on these things.
Yeah, and you said it. It appeals to you because you're an artist. That's what art is, and you leave it for us to be able to interpret our own stories, and that's where it's very exciting. That's one thing I love about photography. And you said it so well in the beginning. It's a moment in time that's fleeting. It's gone. And I love the way a person, when you get photograph a person, just when they're breaking into a smile, for instance,
Mm.
not the full smile, but just the moment, that little experience, of inspiration that gets them there, and you capture it on a photograph, and it's magic.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know. Do we have enough time? I don't want to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
over. Okay.
sure.
Sometimes, um, sometimes the unexpected happens. So there was a fellow, in fact, I'll show the pictures. There was a fellow who I photographed, and he saw me photographing him. So he caught me. Okay. And he did not like it. And he was mad. In
Oh
fact,
no.
but it all ends well, folks. I don't know if you could see that picture, but and I'll put it real close. You see his eyes, his face.
Oh yeah.
So he's playing, musical
The
instrument
steel
there,
drum.
steel drum.
Yeah,
And I was attracted to him because I'm a musician, so I really liked his
yeah.
music. I wanted to photograph him, but I wanted to photograph him candidly. But he caught me. All right.
Okay.
So I just kept photographing anyway. I just took my chances. So here, where is that picture? That one, he's pointing his stick at me.
Oh.
Okay. And he's really angry there. So then I felt bad. I still kept photographing. And then I said to him, look, I'm sorry. I'm a photographer. I do this seriously. I gave him my
Hmm.
card and everything. I'm a musician. So I really like what you're doing. And then he calmed down because he realized I was being authentic, and I did apologize. And then what he explained was that the reason why he reacted the way he did was somebody recently was videoing his entire performance,
Oh.
and then they uploaded it to YouTube and some other social media sites, and he didn't like that. So he
Without
didn't
his
know what I was
permission.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the camera that I used, the photograph, it was a very small camera. So from a distance, maybe he thought it was a cell phone. But after that, after we, kind of kissed and made up, then we took another picture.
Oh, I love it. So you have an entire story to be told.
Yeah, which is pretty rare. In
Look at
this
that
book,
smile.
oh yeah, I'll show
Oh
it again.
my gosh.
Yeah, he was really happy there. So,
But,
we kissed and
I
made
would
up.
think, I mean, it's a tough call for these musicians, who are being ripped off for their music. I mean, music making, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir here,
Uh-huh.
but they're used to having their photos taken. I mean, I would think they would relish it. But it's so wonderful to see that entire development of emotion.
Yeah, I just thought it
Oh,
was a nice
beautiful.
series. The pictures in this book of mine are all single shots, but that's one of the exceptions where I have the three to show the progression. What was interesting too was, again, because I appreciated him. I wanted to give him some money because he's playing for money,
Sure.
but I didn't have any on me. I rarely have money on me. Um, Kind of doesn't make sense for a lawyer. A lawyer who doesn't have any money, but I had no money on me. So what happened was I was aware of that, so I put money in my pocket the next day, thinking I would see him there, but I didn't see him there the next day. And every day when I went out to photograph, I looked for him and I
You were
couldn't find
prepared.
him.
Yeah.
2 years later, I came across him some other spot, and I said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And he just smiled, big smile. He goes, "Of course I remember you." And then I gave him some money. I gave him $1. No, I'm only kidding. I gave him more. I gave him more than that. Gave him $2. No, I gave him.
No, you gave him what was worthy of his playing, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I gave him some good money, and it was just nice to see him again. And he said he moves around a lot, so he's never in one spot. But I never forgot him. And his name is Dexter, actually. So
I love
first
it.
name basis. But yeah, so there's some nice moments like that, and it's good because people, this may blow people's mind. I'm actually I'm a very shy person, believe it or not. I have to work myself up to talk like this.
Really?
Yeah, and as a lawyer, also, it's just usually I'm completely content to not say very many words and to just be by myself. So during during the lockdown with COVID and everything, I was completely fine with that. I had no
That
problem
was
with it.
perfect for you
Yeah,
then.
it was perfect for me.
I
So
would never take you
yeah,
for being an introvert.
yeah, I am actually. But for some reason, if I'm on stage or I'm doing something like this,
Mhm.
it's easier. It kind of comes out. But otherwise, I'm very quiet. So it's hard for me to talk to people on the street to get their picture.
Okay, okay.
But the camera often will be like a door opening opportunity where people will ask about what I'm doing because they see it's a serious camera, or they see my hair. They ask me, "Or are you a musician? Are you a rock star?" So that helps with that. And in particular, I have to say, to be honest, again, because I'm attracted to clothes and
Mhm.
fashion,
Mhm.
uh, I always feel funny when I'm photographing a female because there's a lot of creeps out there,
Yeah.
and so, but I dare not speak to them. I feel funny asking them. Like, it just sounds so hokey. Hey, can I take your picture?
Yeah.
So I never know how to deal with that. And unfortunately, I missed a lot of great photos for that reason. So I have to come up with a way or a manner where I can do that. I always bring lots of business cards with me.
Mhm.
And my card, not to be braggy about it, but I put all my credentials there so people know that
Yeah.
it's legit. There's a
Yeah.
QR code they can scan so they can go right to my website so they know it's legit.
Yeah. And you are
Because,
published. Oh, yeah. Big
yeah, I'm
time.
published, but, everybody has a camera these days. So everybody can claim they're a photographer or they're an artist. And sometimes
Isn't
they're
it the truth?
not good.
It doesn't make them an artist necessarily. This is the problem I have with life right now, Xiomáro.
Mm,
It does not make them a film director if they can shoot, a short film. There are some that really work with their craft, and there are those like you really treasure the craft. And when you think about it, people like Stanley Kubrick, the great director, he started out as a photographer. And
that's
it's
right.
interesting, that development of stills. I mean, we can see that in our minds when we think about a movie we love. We remember a still shot.
Hmm.
You know,
That's
when I
right.
when I think of The Godfather, it's a series of stills to me.
Hmm.
And every one of them is memorable. But in Stanley Kubrick's world, it was the photograph. And I know he did that throughout his life. I know his family.
Mm,
But that how that developed into filmmaking and beyond is so extraordinary to me because it's kind of like singing. You and I both know that singing is an extension of speech.
that's right.
Everybody can do it. We may not sing on key, but everyone can do it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and there's a natural development in art I find that has an arc to it. And
Mhm.
that's something I like to talk about a lot because in music we know there's a musical arc if you listen to any great symphonic writing, but there is in a photograph too, and your series you're doing, definitely.
Well, that's a very good observation about photography and film.
Yeah.
And I think photography does help in filmmaking. A lot of people do start out that
Oh,
way because,
yes.
when I do an exhibit, I select photographs so that they do tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be obvious, but, they're not just random. It's not just a random collection of the best shots.
Yeah.
Sometimes not the best shots are out there, but they serve a purpose in taking you from one spot to the next. So, there is a storytelling element, and I think that's a big part of it. A lot of a lot of photographers I've seen who, like online, who designate themselves as artists.
Mm-hmm.
You look at their portfolio, and it's just lots of random
Yeah.
shots. I mean, they're well
Yeah.
taken, but there's no connection with them. There's no theme
Right.
to it. It's just different shots.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're technically good, but there's nothing interesting going on in the
Yeah.
subject because they tend to be very generic. Photographs of pretty women, photographs of land, sunsets. Those are big flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with those things because I began the same way. I practice on flowers and sunsets and things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, if you want to be an artist, you have to outgrow that. You got to move beyond that.
That's
And
right.
it's not just taking a generic picture that we've seen before, but something that is unique to you. And you have to know something about yourself. I think it was Ansel Adams who said, someone asked him, what does it take to be a good photographer and an artist? And they were asking that question with the expectation he was going to give them some technical advice. Like, you got to know what an ISO is, and you got to get a certain camera.
Yeah.
And I think his answer, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect that it's the accumulation of everything you've read, everything you've experienced, everything you've, talked about and learned about. That's what it takes to be an artist and a good photographer. It's, taking all that stuff and getting it revealed in your
Wow.
photography. And that's a very subtle thing and nuanced thing that a lot of people don't understand, because they do think it's about the camera. A lot of times that's the first question people will ask me. Well, what camera did you use? As
Yeah.
if they bought that camera, they can get the same results. And what they
Exactly.
don't realize is that in my, like in the book, I won't say which ones, but there's quite a number of pictures in this book that were taken with an iPhone 7, which is a very old phone. Not a lot of megapixels for people who are into that stuff. And so it's not a professional camera, but it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with what you see and how you compose it.
That's right.
Some of those iPhone pictures have been exhibited overseas, in Europe. So, it's really not about the equipment. The equipment can be helpful for different reasons, but I've always said that the most important piece of equipment is the one between your ears.
Yeah.
This is the storehouse for experiences, what you've read, what you've learned, and then it's putting that out. Whether you sing, whether you take photographs, whether you take a picture, write music,
I
write a
love
book.
that.
Yeah.
I
So it's all
love
those
that.
things.
I love that. And here comes our completion. Our circle feels complete now. We've
Hmm.
had Xiomáro's words and Ansel Adams, so I think we are complete because you can't get any better than that, right? Hey, before you go today, I've just got to know today, because I know I've asked this question of you before, but today, what is the one word that defines who you are?
Oh, wow, that's a hard one. Today, driven,
Okay.
very driven. I'm very high octane. That's almost my day every day. So I guess that's always going to be my word. But particularly because of this book, I'll put it out there one more time because the
Yeah.
publisher
Yeah.
expects me to promote it too.
Because
But
we need to know where to find this book,
yeah,
Mr.
this
Driven
book
One.
is in, you can certainly get it on Amazon,
Hmm.
Barnes and Noble, Walmart. And the publisher did a very good job. I checked, it's in 22 nations. You can buy the book right now and counting.
22. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, Saudi Arabia, Belgium, Canada, Japan. I mean, I have a whole list here, but I was very impressed at how they distributed very well.
Just your cover photo alone is going to catch so many people's eye. Where was that exactly?
Yeah, that was in Times Square. I
Yeah, I
just thought
thought
it was
so.
kind of funny because it says fun for the whole family. As if it was some conservative family Disneyland. And some parts of it is, but some of it is not. As they describe the painted women.
Well, that's exactly.
Yeah. And and all the dangers.
But
Yeah.
the,
I mean, it's just a clash of different things. I guess it depends on what kind of family you're in. But, you know, it's a good question. I mean, I'm very driven. I'm very,
mm,
I'm very focused on what I do.
mhm.
Excuse the pun. Part of it is because, I take this very seriously, but also because of cancer. I don't know how much time I have. Every time I go to a doctor's visit, I'm always bracing myself for bad news. So I try to seize the day, carpe diem, make the most of the day as much as I can. And
Definitely.
yeah, I just try, but at the same time, also enjoy life. So I work very hard. I mean, I put in at least 10 straight hours solidly every day, like 7 days a week, pretty much. But in the evening, I just live a regular life like everybody else. Watch a little TV, read
Yeah.
something and
Yeah.
talk to people, and uh, just you have to do that sometimes.
You have to do that,
Yeah,
Xiomáro. You have to.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I've just got to thank you for being on center stage again. I've got to say, I feel safe looking through your eyes through the camera lens. I think that you're recording so many incredible moments in our lives, simple things, that means so much. And as you've said so well, twice, things are changing.
Hmm.
We need a
Yeah.
record of what's happening, and we need a record of emotional experience in what is happening. And I know you're going to give that to us. So
Yeah. Those who get the book, chapter 2 specifically addresses the change as I saw it start to unfold in Manhattan. You know, you saw
interesting.
there's a lot of photographs out there, political protests,
Yeah,
and just other things that were happening on the street that I thought I would never see in Manhattan. So the
yeah.
book covers a wide range of things, but it's kind of like one giant snapshot of all these different things that happen, and it gives you an idea of what New York City is like for those who haven't been here. And like I said, as time passes by, I think it'll have a little bit more historical import.
You bet. We will appreciate that. As I appreciate that beautiful, I think it's dragonfly around your neck.
Oh yeah, I love this. I love the dragonfly. It's just a
It's,
beautiful insect. It's like
yes,
an
it is.
airplane, and it stops and it moves, and I love it also in the Tiffany lamps.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
yes.
I
My
have.
gosh.
They're not real Tiffany, but I have some Tiffany style lamps here in the studio. I just love the color from it, and
Of
it just makes
course.
the studio really cozy. And so, yeah, I'm glad you noticed that.
You're wearing that's absolutely beautiful. Oh, well, Xiomáro, thank you so much. I mean, you've graced us with your presence again. Oh, you warrior, you. And I admire that so much. The introvert who is the actual warrior out there with his camera. I love it. So don't stay a stranger. Come back
All right.
anytime. We'll
Yeah.
do this. We'll keep doing this.
All right.
You've got a message, and we all need an emotional experience from what you see. So thank you so much, my dear.
Well,
And
thank you very
everyone,
much too.
you bet. I want everyone to go out and buy this new book of New York street photography by Xiomáro. You will not regret it because he's the man who's recording our todays and they will become our tomorrows. So thank you again. I really love having you as a guest. You have so much unique energy, Xiomáro. I just adore it. I
Oh,
just
you're very welcome, Pam. I really appreciate being on your show.
always, always. Same. So, everyone, I invite you to seek me out at Pamela Kuhn Official on all social media platforms, Center Stage with Pamela Kuhn, Center Stage with PamelaKuhn.com, and at WGCH Radio in Greenwich, Connecticut. So, all I can say is, everybody, get your camera out. But first, go buy Xiomáro's books. And I say books because there are many out there. So, to everyone, stay safe. This is Pamela Kuhn, and the curtain is now down on Center Stage.